Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Bella Gamer, and we're back now with the changes to the multi-class archetype dedications here in Player Core 2. Now, I know this is a video a lot of you are looking out for to see what has changed or what hasn't changed. And there's a lot to talk about in this video. I'm probably going to air some of my grievances here as well, as I'm just going to prep you all ahead of time. It's a little messy. It's not bad, necessarily, but things could have been tightened up a lot. But we'll get to that in the video. First, before we start, though, want to let you guys know, Paizo did send me a copy of the Player Core 2 as a PDF to review. So this is not a sponsored video, but they did send it to me. And all thoughts and opinions here are my own. So you don't have to worry about any biased views other than the fact that I got the PDF for free, which I would have bought it anyway, regardless. Now, if we're talking about partnerships, though, this video is partnered with Into the AM. They have really nice cotton shirts. I haven't had any shrinkage with any of the ones they sent me so far. The graphics have been really nice. I really like this Cthulhu one in particular that has this astronaut being strangled. It's a really good shirt. I really enjoy them. They actually have a killer deal right now where you can get 3 graphic tees for just a little bit over $20 each. But if you use my code in the description below, you can actually get 10% off anything on the website, including this deal, meaning that each of these shirts will be worth less than $20, which is really good if you're into good quality graphic tees. So if you want some new shirts and you want to support the channel a little bit on the side, I'd highly appreciate it. But let's go ahead and talk about the multi-class archetypes. Now I'm going to be covering them in alphabetical order, so hopefully you know your alphabets. And let's get started with Alchemist. So Alchemists has changed dramatically, mostly because there's no longer infused reagents, and the Alchemists' Quick Alchemy and Advanced Alchemy have been essentially separated into 2 different features with no overlap. So the dedication now, while having many of the same features that the dedication used to have before, now gives you 4 quick vials for the sake of quick alchemy. And the quick vials as well are also bombs you can throw, so you get 4 free bombs every day that you can use, though predominantly I imagine they're best used with quick alchemy to make some alchemical item you need, though remember that they are short-lived, so any of their effects cannot last more than 10 minutes. This is a bit of a downgrade from the old version that I'll show you here, because you used to just get infused reagents equal to your level. And while true, you only got to your level, so at this level you would get 2 infused reagents versus 4 quick alchemy versatile vials. I will say you could divide those 2 into 4 items, because with old advanced alchemy, you used to be able to do 2 items per batch. Though, you might notice that in the old version you can't make items with the advanced alchemy higher than level 1, as that's what you were set to, and you needed feats to pick that up. Now, that's not mentioned. There's no longer that kind of limitation. So whatever items you make with quick alchemy will equal your level, which is a huge potency boost. So while sure, you would eventually get more infused reagents over time, you are going to have much more potent items with the new Alchemist. Now, it also mentions the quick alchemy benefits, so I'm going to go ahead and put this up here. More or less what it says is that whatever versatile vials you have, the number of vials you get is equal to the highest source you have. They're not additive, so you can't combine them together, but those vials can be used for any feature that uses quick alchemy. So this is mostly relevant for any classes like Herbalist or Poisoner, who can only make specific items. So if you took both Herbalist and Poisoner, then, well, I guess they don't get the quick alchemy. So yeah, I don't know. If they release any future archetypes that do quick alchemy using the versatile vials, then, this is more relevant. If you're taking the Alchemist multi-class archetype dedication, then you can just make any alchemical items, or, well, any consumable one, I should state. So, not a particularly big deal, but still, I figured I'd mention it since it was mentioned in the new dedication. Now, we still have both basic concoction and advanced concoction. It just lets you pick feats, so you don't have to worry about that. But we got a new feat at level 2 called Advanced Alchemy, now allowing us to be able to use Advanced Alchemy to make items at the beginning of the day, though we can only make 4 items ever. So while this is kind of step for step equal to how Alchemist was before, kind of, because at this point, at level 4, you could make 8 alchemical items. Oh, I guess not level 2. Did I say level 2 earlier? I meant level 4. So you could make 8 advanced alchemy items, granted at like level 1. Now you can make 8 items, 4 with the versatile vials that are, consumable only, well, or short-lived consumables only, and now 4 that you can just make at the beginning of the day with the infused trait. So I do say you can get less overall bonus alchemical items. And actually, speaking on that, the advanced alchemy benefits, which I'll show here, just state that if you get anything that has advanced alchemy, that you take the highest number of uses for that. So for herbalist or poisoner or this particular archetype dedication, you get 4. Even if you have all 3, they're not additive together. And with the alchemist dedication, you can just make whatever. So technically, it does make it easier to use herbalist, I guess, because now you don't have to make only elixirs if you get both of them together. But yeah, so it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, so at most, well, I shouldn't say at most, because they actually added 2 new feats. Since Expert Alchemy and Master Alchemy are removed, because we now just increase our Advanced Alchemy as we level for free, which is really nice. We did get 2 new feats. We got voluminous vials, which gives us extra versatile vials. We get 5 at 12th level. Or no, we get 5 at 6th level, 6 at 12th level, and 7 at 18th level. It's not a lot, but hey, I guess it's something. We also got another feat, and in tandem with this, we got Alchemical Power. Now, this one is actually insane, because Alchemical Power allows us to choose if we have a alchemical item with the infused trait that does a saving throw, we can use our class DC instead. Now, it's really silly here because it says you become expert in the alchemist class DC, but it says your class DC. So we wouldn't use I don't know what we would use the alchemist class DC for anyway. I don't like how class DCs don't mean anything outside of the class they're used for. It just doesn't make sense to include them anywhere. But maybe it's for feats. Maybe. I don't even know. I can't even recall any that would. But anyway, you become expert in alchemist class DC, and you can change any saving throws to your class DC for any infused items you make. That's actually a huge power up, and that makes it way better than old alchemist, who you were kind of at the whims of whatever item level you could create. So that being the case, this is a buff, in my opinion. There's a lot of good things here, and alchemist in general, it feels good. It feels like that now you can't argue that with multiclassing, a fighter could be a better alchemist because they can hit harder with or they can hit better with their higher fighter attack. Well, now that's just not really the case. You just can't have as much access as an alchemist would, like, effectively. And I think that's good. I think that's best for the class at all. It makes it keep its class identity without the multi-class kind of stepping on its toes. And it still feels like a good multi-class archetype because you can now pick this up to add some extra vials to the beginning of your day to allow you to do different things, especially if you're playing something like the Investigator's Alchemical Sciences. You can actually get more versatile vials with that class feature, allowing you with the Alchemist archetype dedication to make more of every kind of alchemical item, not just elixirs and tools. So it actually can expand what a investigator can make with alchemical sciences. Really, really cool. I do think this is generally a buff, so overall, I'm pretty happy with this one. Moving on, let's talk about the Barbarian dedication. And before we get started about this, I absolutely hate the prerequisites for marshals most of the time. Most marshals, I guess Alchemist didn't technically get it. So before it was before now, it has 2 stat requirements, I guess. They changed the semicolon to a colon, so, or a comma, semicolon to a comma. Yeah. So I don't know what that would change, if anything. And I don't know why you need more expenditure to get a martial class. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't see the benefit to it. And it just makes them harder to get than like spellcasters who give you spells that allow you to do so many really good things. It feels imbalanced. So in my games, it's one of the two stats. And that's just how I'm running it. If you like the idea, you can take it. But from my understanding, I don't know why it's not and or. Like, I wish they had just made this part clear, because it's something that I've always been confused about. And there's never been any clear cut written answers to this other than it's in the prerequisite section. It's just strangely separated by a comma. I don't know. Anyway, sorry, that was my rant for the video. No, it wasn't. There's more rants. But rant aside, Barbarian dedication, you probably can tell already now, hasn't changed, funny enough. So before, it did the same thing. But the thing is that new rage doesn't give a penalty to AC. So this new version of the dedication gives that penalty to anyone who's not just straight up a barbarian. Now, I think this is great. I think Barbarian should have just the best rage abilities, even though it wasn't really much of a competition, because eventually your rage damage would just dwarf anyone who is multi-class archetyping into a Barbarian. But still, it does just make it a little bit more substantial. And Barbarians who are used to raging don't lose themselves as easy as other people. So honestly, I'm not too upset about this lack of a change. And speaking on lack of changes, nothing else changed in Barbarian. So yeah, that's it. That's all to talk about for Barbarian. So moving on to Champion, one of the classes touted as being one of the most changed, even though honestly with the dedication, not much has changed at all. So the dedication here just goes into the specifics that when it comes to things like sanctification or whatever, if you are playing a Redeemer champion who requires you have holy sanctification, you can't play a god like under a god like Osmodeus, who you can only be unholy under. And of course, you have to follow your god's anathema, so that makes a lot of sense. So honestly, it's a lot of the same stuff, except for a major change, which is now when you pick up the dedication, you get trained in light and medium armor. And if you are already trained in light and medium, then you become trained in heavy. So spellcasters got nerfed here by not being able to select champion dedication to get heavy armor for your squishy caster. That's rather unfortunate, if you ask me personally. I understand a lot of people are going to be upset now about this one, and I can kind of understand. So rough stuff for casters on that one. But there is a bit of a silver lining here. They used to have a feat at level 14 called Diverse Armor Expertise that allowed you to get expert proficiency in whatever armor you get. Now, the feat allows you to, whenever you get a proficiency in any kind of armor besides unarmored, that increases. You increase your heavy armor proficiency along with it, which is really good. This allows a lot of other marshals to now have up to master proficiency with heavy armor, which is pretty cool. Now, it does exclude unarmored, and that's so that you can't select this as a monk at level 2 to technically get expert heavy armor proficiency before a champion, which is kind of goofy. Otherwise, it also mentions that if you have the level 13 feat where you get unarmored up to expert, you get it for heavy armor as well. That's mostly just for the casters there, which is sad because most of them won't be able to get that unless they take some general feats. So that being the case, kind of a nerf to the champion dedication as a whole, but I think it all makes complete sense. So I'm not too upset. And there is the buff of it allowing to make your armor proficiency go up with your other armor proficiencies. Now, they did change a couple of their feats, but that's only in the respect that now they have new features. So Divine Ally has been replaced with Devout Blessing, and Healing Hand has been changed to Devout Magic. More or less, these just say what you would get. So with Devout Magic, you get access to one of the 3 types of devout spells, focus spells they have access to, which is either Healing Hands, Void Touch, or Shields of the Spirit, which that one's a particularly good one. And then as well, we no longer have the Divine Allies, so we get the Devout Blessings, but you can select one of the Devout Blessings. Now, I will make special mention that this is the first place where I become the most annoyed with Player Core 2 as far as some of these changes. They don't mention the Champion's Aura class feature here, which that's how their champion reaction works. And if you're curious, they still have the champion reaction. So that is confusing. Also, the champion's aura applies to any aura feats you might pick up, which makes it more confusing for people who are going into it. Now, obviously, I think their idea is you just get the benefits of the champion's aura. It's just a rule that affects how champion ability works. It's not really a feature that gives you anything in particular. But its lack of inclusion in the dedication feat here makes it confusing. It's something I really dislike. I wish they had cleaned this up and make it less vague, because people are going to be confused, even though, yeah, sure, you may understand because you're someone who's experienced with the game or experienced with tabletoping in general. There are plenty of people out there who are new to tabletop who are going to look at this game and want to pick it up and get confused by something like this. I've had people who are confused by this very feature mention this kind of thing in my videos. So I know people out there are going to be confused by this. I don't like this. I really wish they had mentioned that you get the Champion's Aura a class feature as well, in addition to everything. Other than that, it does all the same stuff. So obviously, like, I didn't mention that. If I'm only mentioning things that change in this video particularly. So, yeah, that's just kind of one of my major gripes. Champion mostly didn't change other than just what we now have access to as champions normally. So, updated, nothing has changed relative to the player core. Speaking about no changes, Investigator, nothing changed. It's exactly the same as it used to be before. Now, I gotta say, though, that functionally it's different. Now, with the Investigator stratagem, we have more access to the free action version of the stratagem due to the changes to pursue a lead, which, by the way, if you're confused about any of these new things I'm talking about for some of these classes, go watch my videos. How dare you watch this without understanding the massive changes that have happened so far? I know the videos are long, but come on, you're just not going to understand anything I'm talking about here. So, yeah, I'm just explaining the Investigator because it's a part of the buff. So now you get the free action device stratagem just more easily because of how to pursue a lead has been recontextualized. So overall, a buff to the Investigator dedication just because there's just a buff to Investigator that applies here. So overall, nothing to be upset about. Now, the Monk, on the other hand, got probably the most controversial nerf in these changes, which is the changes to Monk's Flurry. I'm not even going to show you their dedication. It's exactly the same as it used to be before. But Monk's Flurry got nerfed. So now, when you pick it up, which, by the way, it's a level 10 feat, which it was before, but I'm saying it's a level 10 feat that got nerfed this bad. That's kind of rough. So now when you use Flurry of Blows, it goes on a 1d4 cooldown timer where you can't use it again. Now, already has Flourish, so you already can't use it in the same turn anyway. But was this change really necessary? And also, why a D4? Why in God a D4? That makes it so... It just loses all kinds of thoughts of consistency. If they wanted to make it not as frequent, sure. Either make it like once per minute and just cut everyone's suffering right now, or make it every other turn. Just make it you can't use Flurry of Blows again until at least one turn has passed or something like that. So something along those lines. If you want it to be like every other turn, sure, I'm fine. But now it's just inconsistent. Sometimes it's like, oh, I can do this next turn. Or, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to do it for the rest of this combat. Making it very inconsistent, making it a really rough feat to pick up. In fact, I would say almost skip this feat if it wasn't for Inner Upheaval, which is a really good key focus spell that increases your damage with your unarmed strikes. A really good one that you should pick up if you're going multi-class archetype into monk anyway. and it works with Flurry of Blows splendidly. So even if you do it once per combat, at the very least, you do a lot of damage with that one particular Flurry of Blows. So yeah, I don't know why they made this change. It never felt broken. Flurry of Blows applies map normally, so you don't get any map efficiency. And sure, it's a little bit of action efficiency, but I don't know. I think they were trying to preserve the flavor of Monk, but like I don't think it needed it. I think this just makes this feat way worse, and I'm not unhappy with it. I'm just gonna say I'm not happy with it. Oracle dedication mostly didn't change. It mentions mostly the same stuff in the dedication that you can see here. It didn't do anything before. It just said you got the mild effects of your curse all the time, which is a flavor thing. They don't mention that here, but I'm not super upset that that got removed. It's superfluous. You could skin things however you want anyway. But there technically was a change to First Revelation, because First Revelation gave you your first Revelation spell, which let you activate your curse. Well, that's no longer the thing. Now, sure, refocusing your focus points it mentions here does reduce your curse-bound trait by 1 every time you do so. But still, my problem with Oracle's dedication now is that you gain the curse associated with your mystery, which follows the normal rules for the oracular curse. Now I'm going to pull up this section here for oracular curse. That's going to cause a lot of confusion. So it says your oracular curse is expressed using the curse-bound condition, a unique condition that affects only oracles. Immediately after the first time you use a curse-bound ability, you become curse-bound 1. And if you use a curse-bound ability while you're already curse-bound, you increase the value of your curse-bound condition by 1 after the ability resolves. At lower levels, you can tolerate only a modest amount of divine power, and your curse-bound condition can't increase beyond curse-bound 2. As you grow in levels, you can open yourself up to even more power, and your curse-bound condition can progress to 3 and finally 4. So I'm not going to read much more than that. You can see it all there. That's someone will look at it and be like, okay, that's kind of cool. They're going to read that and be like, okay, so when do I get this? They're going to look through the class and they're going to see that they get 3rd at 11th level with Major Curse and 4th at 17th level with Extreme Curse. But those are the class features that give it to you, technically. It's not just leveling that gives it to you. They're a class feature, technically, that gives it to you. So the question becomes, does the Archetype version of Oracle get these when they would based on level 13 or 11 and 17? Now, in my opinion, no. In my opinion, that's just confusing, and they should have worded it better. Because before, and I'll show you the old Revelation feat, it says when you use a Revelation spell, you go to curse bound, or you take your minor curse effect, but if you were to do it again, rather than going to 2, you become off guard. They didn't want you to go to a higher curse bound feature. And yeah, sure, the curses have been made more or less more manageable, easier to use, but I feel like this still the same idea is that they don't want you to go above curse bound 2. Now, overall, I don't have a problem with that. I think that's fine design, and I think Oracle is a great multi-class archetype dedication. But I wish, for all that is holy or unholy, depending on your god, that they had actually put into the book, you have a curse bound, you have a maximum curse bound trait value of 2, and this does not change as you level. That's a sentence that they had to add that would have clarified everything up and made this way easier to parse to new players. So yeah, that's the second one now that has happened here in the feast. And I don't want this to be a negative video. Not a lot has changed, so there's not a lot to be positive about besides, you know, the fact that, of course, many of these classes are better. So many of these features work better, and these multi-class archetypes are actually better to take now. That's all really good. I wish they had just taken a step to make things a little bit more clear. And actually, this carries on to Sorcerer dedication, which we'll talk about next. So Sorcerer's dedication, you can see, is unchanged. It's exactly the way it was before. But the thing is, one of the new things Sorcerer's got is now you can get extra blood magic effects through feats, which you can do with the various blood potency feats here in the Archetype dedication. But the dedication itself doesn't explicitly state you can use blood magic. Now, again, I think this is the intent. I think that allowing a multi-class Archetype sorcerer to get access to blood magic, granted they have to pick up a feat to do so, they don't get it innately for their bloodline, makes sense. But it's not written here. So can you get blood magic through feats or not? I mean, it says you don't gain any other abilities from your choice of bloodline other than the tradition of spell casting, essentially. So do you have access to bloodline magic or blood magic? I don't know. You can pick up their bloodline spells through feats. So I just don't know why you couldn't pick up their blood magics, even if it's not the one for the class. In fact, if anything, they should get a feat that can give you the blood magic. But maybe, hey, maybe they want to preserve some of the sorcerer ability, even though that kind of got done with dangerous sorcery no longer being a feat, which does make sorcerer dedication a little bit of a nerf because that was a really good feat to pick up early. And now it's technically just not in the game. Sure, it's legacy, but the intent is for dangerous sorcery to not be in the game anymore. So, again, another situation where I wish they had just mentioned it, if anything, so we don't have to question this kind of stuff. And finally, we get here to Swashbuckler, another class that got amazing changes that works overall better now. And with the dedication, we did see a slight change. Now it does just mentions that tumble through with acrobatics, as well as any actions with our style get the bravado trait, which is pretty good. Though I will state that I guess this is a little bit of a nerf as well, because the panache class feature doesn't give you the bonus to your stylish tricks, to your stylish combatant thing. So I guess because old Swashbuckler, which I'll put up here, used to just give you straight up panache, which gave you a bonus to things that would give you panache. I guess that's just no longer a thing. So Swashbuckler kind of losing out on some bonuses to some of their skills they use for their panache stuff feels a little lame, personally. But it's something that I'm not so upset about, and this just keeps the sanctity of Swashbuckler. They're still the best at doing the things that make them swashbucklers. But well, nothing has changed beyond that. The wording didn't change either, which makes some of their feats confusing. Well, one of their feats particularly confusing. Finishing precision is exactly the way it was written before, with a new page number. But the problem is, it starts off with the sentence, "You've learned how to land daring blows when you have panache." But the thing is the precise strike class feature gives you the additional 1 precision damage that we're going to get here all the time. So a new player, because it's obvious because it says you gain the precise strike class feature. So if you read the feature, you would understand that. But a new player or someone who's just not so firm in the rules is going to be like, wait, but it says here when you have panache, so do you need panache to get this +1 precision damage? That's confusing. They just copy pasted that text and did not understand that that was going to change some people's perception on how this particular feature is going to work. Now, of course, you get that +1 precision damage all the time with the 1d6 precision damage for your finishers when you use a finisher, either the basic finisher or a finisher through a feat. But to some people, that's just going to be confusing because the wording is off. And well, that's all the stuff that has changed for Swashbuckler, and that's all the changes in general. I just want to say that this has made this video really hard to make. I don't want to be a party pooper. I don't want to be overly critical because I like many of the changes in Player Core 2. Player Core 2 is a really good book, and all these Archetype dedications, for the most part, got buffed. They are just inherently better. I mean, Swashbuckler especially. You can get panache now by sneezing, so you can use the finisher all the time, which is just a better strike, except it does stop you from striking again, but you know what I mean. So, many of these are just buffs, technically, because these classes just work better, even though much of the wording hasn't changed. That's kind of part of the problem. And for the ones that did change, they didn't include the actual changes that were necessary for some of the class features. So it's just vague. I really feel like the multi-class archetype section was a little undercooked. It feels like they didn't take a lot of the like wording or grammar here into consideration for how it would affect the game and people, choosing these dedications. And it's just going to cause a lot of confusion. And especially with Oracle, who technically got less clarification, that's insane. So obviously, to me, I understand how all these things are supposed to work. And I don't really have a question with this. And I think for many experienced players or GMs, they feel the same way. But you got to consider new people. You got to consider other people who are going to try this. There's people who've been playing the game for a long time who are still unsure about how some rules work. And I know this is the case because I get these kind of comments in my videos. So I feel like Paizo did not take the time to really go through this part to really make it fit really well. Like for everything else, I think they did fine. If you don't like the Oracle changes, that's fine, but that's just Paizo's direction. And whether you agree with how they took it or not, that's a different conversation. But this feels particularly unpolished. Many of these I had just general complaints because they were vague, more vague than they used to be. I don't like this rhetoric. And let me be clear. I don't like the rhetoric that Paizo didn't spend enough time on this book. They poured a lot of time and effort and money into this book. They would do the best they could. Every book is going to have flaws. Every book in every game has flaws. It's just how it is. And unless you got Hasbro money, with Wizards of the Coast, they still make a bunch of flaws anyway. There's still going to be flaws. So, it's something where I'm not saying this to poo-poo on Paizo. I think they've been doing great. But some of this stuff really needs to be cleaned up. And I'm just trying to think of the players. I'm just trying to think of people who are going to struggle with this. Because for me, none of this is a problem. But it's not just about me. It's about everyone who plays the game. And that's what I'm the most concerned about when it comes to any of my videos, really. So whether you agree or disagree, this is just my opinion. And honestly, again, I don't want people to be upset at Paizo. So if you just disagree with me, yeah, be upset at me. Be upset that I'm saying this. That's fine. I can take it. I don't want Paizo getting any hate. I think they've been doing great. I think the book is really good. And to be fair, they were stressed. They were crunching. I spoke to many of some of the lead designers in Paizo, which is pretty cool. And they were really crunching out for this book. So I'm not going to shit on them for it. But I'm definitely going to criticize what needs to be criticized, in my eyes, at the very least. So, I wish this part had just been cleaned up a little bit more, and it would just take an extra sentence here and there to really clarify a lot of these things. And that's, I think, the saddest part is they're just a sentence away from fixing all of this. So hopefully we see that in like an FAQ or an errata, and everything is good. Otherwise, all the archetype dedications got generally buffed because many of these classes got generally buffed. Except for Monk. Man, that one's rough. But anyway, that's gonna be it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck to me. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye.